Everyone is your enemy. Everyone is your friend. Every possible series of events is happening all at once. Live that way, and nothing will surprise you. Everything that happens will be something that you've seen before.
One thing is for certain about Sansa Stark. She's likely not going to take any more chances with the future of House Stark going into Game of Thrones Season 8. And like you just saw at that clip that I shared at the beginning of this video, if she plans correctly, she'll be able to guess any sort of outcome that may happen in Game of Thrones Season 8 and be prepared for that situation. In this video, I want to explain why I think that paranoid line of thinking may come back and cause Sansa to betray the ones closest to her, as well as some leaked information that was sent to me. Now remember, the leaked part of this video is to be taken with a grain of salt and is more or less for entertainment purposes. But as always, here's your sign, and let's begin. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 1,421. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then, this is the most important part, make sure you have your notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Now, like I just mentioned, the clip that I shared at the beginning of this video was meant to be a bit of a foreshadowing, in my opinion, to the fact that Sansa will take on the last advice that Peter Baelish gave her. In lamest terms, he's telling her that she always needs to keep her eyes open. Always be expecting people to betray you. Even though a person may come off as an ally in the fact that you share a common goal, always in the back of your mind be thinking of how they're going to betray you and be prepared to handle that situation. Now, I'm not gonna lie. This, before the events or the end of Game of Thrones Season 7, would have been a great way for Sansa Stark to play about the Game of Thrones. The problem is that game is coming to an end. This type of thinking is going to, in my opinion, cause more harm to Sansa than good. We've already been privy to bits of that with the introduction of Sansa to Daenerys. She says, "Winterfell is yours, your grace." Every single person watching, well, every single person who's been paying attention to Sansa Stark's character, rather, knows that that was a load of horseshit. Even Brienne, standing right behind her, she looks at her like, really? You're gonna call her your grace? Now, that act in and of itself is just obviously a professionalism. It comes with the job. She really knows that if she wanted to be less forward with her and less getting Daenerys to think of her in a certain light, then she could have just as easily had greeted Daenerys in the Great Hall, being seated, the same way that she put Peter Baelish on trial. That's sort of an intimidating way to meet with a monarch. Even though Daenerys, in our minds, is the rightful queen of the Seven Kingdoms, to Sansa, she's just a woman who claims to have a birthright to the Iron Throne, when, in all good and well, Cersei's the one sitting the Iron Throne, so Daenerys is basically just a foreign invader who's decided to team up with Jon. Now, obviously, we know that's not the case, but my point in all of this is that if Sansa wasn't playing the game, then she would have mainly just have showed her power, handled this introduction in a different way, in my opinion at least. The fact that Sansa will treat Daenerys like a friend and also like an enemy, in my opinion, is going to cause a bit of tension next season that may last past the first 2 episodes. We all know the massive battle is going to be in episode 3, but this sort of tension that Sansa is bringing onto the plate between her and Daenerys may last all throughout the season and all the way up until the very last episode if the 2 of them survive. But enough of my own speculation aside, let's go ahead and jump into the leaks. Now, this information was sent to me through the DMs over on Twitter. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow me at Sir_Hunts, but this person mentions that upon her arrival at Winterfell, Daenerys is greeted cheerfully. Afterwards, Sansa meets with Brienne and tells her to inform her of what was said in Daenerys' camp on their way to Winterfell, as well as what went down at the meeting with Cersei. Sansa ends the conversation with Brienne by telling her that she is to find out as much as she can about Daenerys, and Brienne ensures Sansa that Daenerys is loyal and not a threat, but Sansa isn't hearing any of that and sends Brienne off. In another scene, Sansa meets with Arya, and the 2 of them begin discussing Jon and Daenerys' arrival. Arya takes the lead of the conversation by asking Sansa if she should play the game of faces with Tyrion. Sansa asks Arya to explain what the game of faces is, and Arya responds that it's mainly just a way to determine someone's true intentions. Just then, Bran knocks at the door and is accompanied by Jon. This is the first time all of the Starks are alone in a scene since season 1. All of the alive Starks anyway. A lot of emotion is happening all at once, and you can see tears welling up in Jon Snow's eyes. Jon begins by stating that he is so happy they're all here and that everyone is safe. Sansa interrupts him by mentioning how safe is a fickle word and that the dragons are more dangerous than any threat from the dead or from Cersei. Jon replies that the dragon are Daenerys' children and that they obey her every command. Arya smiles at Jon and looks towards Sansa for a response. Bran clears the awkward silence and says Daenerys lost a dragon at Eastwatch. The Night King now controls that dragon. Jon's stomach then sinks immediately. The scene ends with Jon leaving the room to inform Daenerys of the news of Viserion's resurrection. At the end of the episode, Sansa meets with Tyrion and begins to question his motivation. She mentions that the Tyrion she remembers would never betray his family. Tyrion responds that the Tyrion you remember would never lay a finger on you. The two of them share a laugh and begin discussing Cersei. Tyrion confesses to Sansa that he doesn't think she will send troops and that she likely lied just so that Daenerys wouldn't burn her alive right then and there. After Tyrion exits the scene, Sansa immediately begins writing a note on a paper. The last shot of the episode is of the Golden Company starting a siege at Winterfell, and they begin attacking the encampments surrounding Winterfell and shoot flaming wildfire arrows to ignite everything ablaze. Just pausing right there for a second for some quick input. Man, these things always start to fall to towards the very end, which is why I only include partial leak, because if I include the whole thing, it's more easier to spot the holes and it makes the whole thing less entertaining. But just two quick things that I thoroughly enjoyed from the leak so far is the fact that it has all of the Starks meeting in private together and there's heavy amounts of emotion in that scene. I think once we all finally get to witness this on screen, we're all probably going to shed a little bit of tears. So if we get to see the characters acting this same way, we have something that we can relate to on screen in the shared emotion of one of the characters. Another thing that I like, and this is obvious because this is the reason why I made the video, is the fact that it has Sansa immediately calling Jon Snow out on trying to ice over everything with Daenerys. Like, we all know the first chance Jon Snow gets when he's in private with his siblings is he's going to be like, look, Daenerys is a wonderful person. Please, please, please forgive me in the fact that I went to go and retrieve some dragon glass and I came back with some dragon ass. Oh yeah, and you know how everyone in the North was worried that I could almost die and leave you guys without a king? Oh, that happened too. Bran's a robot and Arya will just be caught up with the fact that she gets to see her big brother again. So the only person that's going to call Jon out for some of his nonsense in season 7 is going to be Arya. And that's part of the reason of why I chose to include this leak in this video. Okay, so getting back into the leak and just catching everyone back up so that we're all on the same page. This all happens in the very first episode. And episode 1 is supposedly going to end with the Golden Company attacking Winterfell. After the attack of the Golden Company, Sansa and Arya share a scene in which the two of them decide that Cersei needs to be dealt with. Daenerys and Jon apparently want to take their time and make sure they lose as few lives as possible during dealing with Cersei, so their main focus is still the Night King, and that waiting is what drives Sansa to plot behind their backs. Arya says that she will need only a few good men and that she will be able to take care of Cersei and the King's Landing threat. She convinces Sandor to join her, and Sansa commands Brienne to accompany Sandor and Arya, and the three of them set off on their journey. By the end of episode 2, they all set out on their journey. Not far into their journey, they end up running into Jaime, and it's about to be nightfall, so they all decide to camp out. There's a scene around the fire in which Arya realizes that Brienne may have some affection towards Jaime, and this causes Arya to second guess Sansa's decision to bring Brienne along on her journey. Later in the night, Arya is seen deserting their encampment. Sandor becomes aware of this and decides to join her. The two of them make it into a clearing in the woods when all of a sudden they're greeted by the ominous fog that follows around the Night King. They see hundreds of blue eyes staring back at them through the darkness, and the episode then cuts to black and the credits begin to roll. Now, in my opinion, that obviously has a bunch of holes in it like most of these plot leaks do, but some of the most important points that I enjoyed from it were the fact that Sansa grows impatient from Jon and Daenerys' decision to not immediately take care of Cersei. We all know that the Golden Company is going to be acting early on. In my opinion, if the Golden Company were to attack in the very first episode, this lets us know, hey, there's only 6 episodes left of this show, and we're going to be starting out with a bang. Last year, if I remember correctly, or not last year, almost 2 years at this point, Game of Thrones Season 7 started out with Arya killing a bunch of Freys, or in short, delivering a bunch of vengeance for House Stark. Who's to say that once Daenerys arrives to Winterfell and her and Jon Snow are all booed up, well then bam, that gets turned on its head because Cersei has now sent the Golden Company to come and ruin everyone's evening. But getting back to the main point that I was making in what I liked about this is the fact that if a situation like that were to happen, Sansa would be the first person who says they need to go and take care of Cersei. If you remember the scene that I shared at the very beginning of this video, right before Baelish tells Sansa to be prepared for any scenario next season, they're walking along and it's almost as though Sansa's talking with a teacher, and this teacher repeats the same lesson over and over again, so the student gets angry. That's how I read this scene. And what was that lesson, you might ask, that Sansa the student was getting annoyed by Baelish the teacher about? Cersei. Cersei is the ultimate evil. At this point in the series, Sansa's learned all she feels like she can learn from Baelish before the final lesson of always think 3 steps ahead of your enemy. That lesson is know who Cersei is, know what she's about, and know what she's capable of. So as soon as the Golden Company finally does what Cersei's paying them to do next season, well, this, in my opinion, would then of course force Sansa to act accordingly. I think she's going to be very spiteful of the fact in seeing how strong Daenerys is, how big of an army she has, and how powerful her dragons are, and the fact that she decides not to go and take care of Cersei right away because it would be super easy to her. I think Sansa's gonna grow spiteful of Daenerys because of this. In Sansa's mind, Daenerys will have so much power and so much ability to quickly go and send a small portion of her army to take out Cersei and nullify the King's Landing threat once and for all. This will cause her to act rash and do something that in our eyes will be seen as a betrayal towards Jon and Daenerys. But here's the thing, like I just mentioned, Peter has told Sansa to be aware of this, so Sansa will think of this as an outcome and she'll play the game in a way to make it appear as though she had no other choice to do this option, or cover up her tracks entirely and make it seem as whatever the actions she take were that of someone else's and not of her own doing. I didn't exactly know where to put this information in this video, so I'm just gonna add it in real quick before I get out of here. There is a moment in Game of Thrones season 7 episode 6 at about 41 minutes in where Sansa literally predicts her own capturing next season. Now, there have been several leaks that have been sent to me all throughout this long night that have included different versions of either Sansa getting captured, Arya getting captured, Jon Snow turning himself in so that someone else can be released, or something of that sort of variation. Well, in Game of Thrones season 7 episode 6 at 41 minutes in, Sansa literally says that she's not going to go and see Cersei. If Cersei wants another Stark prisoner, she can come and take her. Now, is that foreshadowing to the Golden Company attacking Winterfell and taking Sansa or one of the Starks hostage? Well, I don't know, but that sure as hell seems like it. And if it does happen, well, we can't say that the clues haven't been laid there since season 7. Real quick, before we get out of here, you guys comment down below and let me know which part of this entire leak and which part of my own speculation do you find most plausible. Do you think that Sansa will plot against Daenerys and Jon next season? Maybe not intentionally, but Daenerys and Jon's actions will cause Sansa to do something similar to what she did when she didn't tell Jon Snow about the Army of the Vale during the Battle of the Bastards? Do you think she's not going to play the game at all, so to speak, and that her actions are going to be all completely behind the scenes, and then towards the end of the season it'll finally be revealed what she's been doing? Or do you think that if she is to act against Jon and Daenerys, it won't be related to Cersei, but it'll be more so related to finding out about Jon Snow's true lineage? Let me know about all that down below in the comments section. Also, HBO, if you're watching my video, or if anyone from the advertising department that is related to Game of Thrones is watching this right now, please release the trailer. Please release it today. And if you don't release it today, please release it by the end of this month. We've been waiting so long. Oh, look, I'll make a deal with you. You don't even have to release a full trailer showing a bunch of new footage. You could literally just show another clips of Winterfell teaser. Just give us some different characters other than the Starks. Please, I beg of you. Where is my trailer? I know that meme is kind of played out at this point, but seriously, we are looking for this season 8 trailer like Daenerys was looking for her dragons. Alright, and with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please, do me a massive favor and slap a like on this video. The like goal is going to be 1,421. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then make sure every notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Super special shout out to every single person watching this video right now, and a super special thank you to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. I want to thank you all so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews.